Today we're going to be taking a deeper look into Notting Hill. Notting Hill has taken many forms over the previous decades, and in the mid-20th century, slums were extremely prominent in this area. Because of the poor housing, there was a lot of community tension and even violence. Today though, Notting Hill has went through a ton of housing transformation and a lot of gentrification, and now it appeals to the wealthy.
Going back in history, in the 1840s, Notting Hill was known as the potteries or piggeries. In fact, the pig-to-people ratio was 3-1. In this picture is the only remaining 19th century kiln located on Walmer Road in Notting Hill.
Fast forwarding to World War II, the conditions at Notting Hill only got worse. This is because of the hundreds of bombs that were dropped in this area. This made Notting Hill a much less desirable place to live.
During the 1950s, Britain needed to be rebuilt after the disastrous World War II. As a result, many Commonwealth citizens from the Caribbean were called to travel to the UK to join the workforce. Since these migrants did not arrive with a lot of money, Notting Hill was a popular place for them to reside due to the cheap rent.
The Notting Hill riots were a series of violent outbreaks involving young, white men known as Teddy Boys against Afro-Caribbean residents.
The motivation behind these riots, according to Hammond Perry's Race Riots, was that British observers highlighted how sexual relations, real and imagined, between black men and white women, housing shortages, and employment competition created hostile social relations between black newcomers and indigenous white residents.
This is Portland Road, and in the 1950s, it was lined with slums. In a BBC interview with George Andrews, who lived here during that time, he said, "As far as people knew, Portland Road was a slum. As far as we knew, it was where we lived. When you look back at it, we lived terrible. We lived in a shack."
This home behind me was once home to 48 migrants. George Andrews and his 7 other family members only shared 2 rooms in this house. This is just one of the examples of the horrible living conditions these migrants experienced.
When rent control became abolished in 1957, this was supposed to help encourage and increase investment in property. Unfortunately, this led to ruthless landlords like Peter Rackman. Ultimately, this helped trigger the gentrification process and became the beginning of the end of the street's working class community.
Peter Rackman was a Polish-born immigrant that was known as being the Lord of the Slums.
By the late 1950s, Peter Rackman owned over 100 rental properties and multiple nightclubs in West London. He was known for overcharging tenants and creating flats into overcrowded subdivisions. He was also known for threatening tenants by shutting off their water and heat.
In addition to the various rent and housing acts that impacted the gentrification process, there was a new middle class that emerged into society in the 1960s who did not want to live in the suburbs. Instead of the wealthy fleeing from cities, like they had done previously, the opposite seemed to be happening in Notting Hill, with the rich looking to live in the center of the city and the poor unfortunately being displaced.
Today, Notting Hill is known as one of London's most iconic neighborhoods. Notting Hill contains high-end shops and restaurants, not to mention luxurious homes that average over £2 million. This community has become home to a fraction of the history that London has to offer.
Overall, World War II, the Windrush generation, and the Notting Hill riots have all impacted the gentrification that we now know as present-day Notting Hill. Thank you guys all for watching and have a great Christmas break.
Because of the poor housing, there's an extreme housing tension in the area.
Ruthless landlords like Peter Rackman. Ultimately, this helped trigger the gentrification process. The beginning of the end of the street's working class community.
You were doing so good. Wait, hold on.
Fast forward to World War II.
Ha ha ha!